Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today. And today we're going to be talking about 5 things that I think could be changed in F1 2019 career mode to potentially make it better. Of course, some of these will just be personal preference, but I think these are 5 things right now that come into my mind that I think need to be tweaked at least, or majorly changed in some cases, to improve the career mode experience overall. So we're going to start off with number 1, and this is a pretty obvious one, a big one. A lot of people have already commented on it on YouTube videos and on Twitter, is the just general performance levels of the cars. Obviously, teams like Alfa Romeo and McLaren have pretty much got shafted at the very start of the career and being so slow, especially McLaren, really, compared to where they are now in the season, you would say, with France and Austria. I know, obviously, there's evolution in the real-life season from where teams start and where they are right now at this point in the real-life season, and that's going to happen in the career mode, but I feel like McLaren should have been moved up a little bit higher at the very start, and the same thing with Alfa Romeo, because they weren't that bad on paper going in from pre-season into the first round. And then you've got teams like Williams, which also with the F2 rivals, which we'll come back to in a bit. Williams, very good in straight line. It seems like the engine power means a lot in the game, whereas in real life, the engine power doesn't mean as much. We've seen that equalization between the Mercedes engine, the Ferrari engine actually being the faster engine this season, and even the Honda not being too bad. But on the game, you can clearly see still that a Mercedes engine is very OP, and that just shows by the Williams car being so good at places like Italy, and pretty much from the start of the season, really, Australia, Bahrain as well, very good example of being just so quick in a straight line. So it doesn't matter how bad they are in the corners, they've got that pace, which does need to be tweaked quite a fair bit. Now, obviously, I know that a patch later down the line will mess around with career mode in terms of if you already got a save going on, that will move things, but I just think it needs to be done eventually, just to kind of actually play it out and level it out a little bit more, because obviously it is funny and entertaining to see teams up and down compared to real life. It's great to see actually a Williams right up there, or a McLaren a little bit lower down, maybe a Toro Rosso right up there, Renault, whatnot, but at the same time, we do want it a little bit somewhat kind of towards realism as well, just to give you that flavour, especially in Season 1. Like, Season 1 should kind of be that realistic representation of the season, and then from Season 2 onwards, the game can go nuts but at least, in my opinion, it can go nuts with driver transfers, go nuts with the performance levels after Season 1, because then that's just all just kind of made up and imaginary. But Season 1 technically should be the kind of, representation of the 2019 season. Then you move on to 2020, 2021, whatever, and you move on, and some bonkers stuff can happen for sure. But performance levels for Season 1 and the base game definitely need to be tweaked, and I'm kind of surprised they haven't brought a patch yet, because I believe last year, I think it only took them maybe 5 days or something like that to actually bring a patch in. I might be wrong, but it did seem like it didn't take as long to bring in a patch to change the R&D levels of the teams, whereas right now in this game, so it's taking a little bit longer. I'm not too sure because of the early release. Maybe they can't work on it as fast. I'm not too sure, but definitely something that needs to be tweaked out straight away and make a big difference, especially if you're choosing some of those lower teams or the midfield teams. It might make your job harder or more or easier, basically, depending on which team you've chosen, if they're going to get a bump, if they're going to get a nerf or a bump up in terms of performance. Number 2, and this is an issue that's been in the game now for at least 2 years. It might have been in 2017 as well. It definitely was there in F1 2018 and 19 now into this new game. So it's really unfortunate, and I'm really sad to see that it's still a thing. But the quali simulation time is still a thing that makes the AI way too OP. And it really means that essentially you have to waste your own time sitting through qualifying if you don't want that to happen. Essentially, if you don't know what I mean, if you're in qualifying, let's say Q1, Q2, or even Q3, you've set a lap time, you don't have any tyres left in Q3, let's say, for example, you have one run, you did it early in Q3, then you don't want to wait 10 minutes around, because you're playing a game, you're probably maybe short for time, so you want to fast forward through to the end of the session. The simulated times the AI do in that fast forward period are always just way quicker than they actually physically do when you just let the time run through. If you just let the time go by and real time, while the AI on whatever setting you've got do a lap time, it's always, let's say that's X, and then if you simulate the time, fast forward it, it's always X minus like a couple of good tenths basically. And so it means that you can think you're in a good position, let's say like P5 or whatever in quali, and then you come to the fast forward and you've been bumped down to like P8, or even worst case, like all the way down to P10 basically. And it was a thing that was in F1 2018, and it really got quite annoying, especially in later seasons. It's actually worse as you go on through the seasons, because of course, as you get onto like, let's say Season 5, Season 6, the cars are getting so quick, and so therefore the simulated times are so hypothetical from the game that they just get ridiculous, to the point where I think at one stage in F1 2018, I was having simulated times where the AI or my teammate was going a good 5-6 tenths faster, and it just didn't make any sense, and it was so frustrating having to sit through all the sessions just just to get that normal qualifying, especially as a content creator. Of course, you guys don't see any bit of that, I edit it down to highlights, so you get to see the luxury of just, cutting to the action, basically, but I have to sit through it all, and if you guys are playing at home, you're gonna have to sit through it all if you also want that same experience of not having this simulated time kind of ruining the kind of grid lineup as well, because it also ruins the lineup, because sometimes you do get a variety of, if you just let the time run through and the AI actually do the physical lap, sometimes they do make mistakes, because there is mistakes coded into the game, but they don't make the mistakes on the simulated runs. They can only make the mistakes when they're actually doing it in real time, and so you do get jumbled up grid sometimes, but then the simulation will just completely knock it off. So you could have, like, someone like Hulkenberg doing really well on the Renault, up in P5, for example, ahead of a Red Bull, then you do simulation, and it's just knocked off, and it just ruins the kind of enjoyment of what could be a bit more of a mixed-up grid, and just, ruins the fact that, you bang in a good lap, you think it's good, and then, oh, wait, hang on, it's not that great. So that's frustrating, especially because, like I said, it has gone on for at least 2 years, might have been 3. I think it might be 3. So that's just, that's actually probably more important than the performance levels, to be fair, actually, because it's been 3 years. Like, it's just, why? Why is it still a thing? It just needs to be fixed. Number 3, now this can be a very obvious one actually, if you've been watching career mode videos, and especially some wet weather racing, the AI wet performance definitely needs a massive tweak. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually like the fact that I can challenge the AI this year in the wet, because although, yeah, it's cool for the AI to be super hard, and in the wet it's really challenging, but it kind of got very annoying in F1 2018, where they were pretty much untouchable from the dry to the wet if you stayed on the same difficulty level, and it was just so annoying just not have any kind of pace in the wet, whereas this year it's kind of the flip end. It's a bit too much, really. I like the ability to kind of out-traction the AI and gain some time on the exit, but not as much as you can now. You can be like 3 car lengths back right now, depending on the corner and the track and the car you're in, and you can gain back on them and overtake them off a corner, which just shouldn't be the case. Maybe, turn it down to the fact where you can maybe gain enough time if you're like maybe half a car length behind and out traction them, then I would be kind of okay with that, because like I said, I want wet weather racing to be actually fun still, so it is kind of fun when you can catch the AI in the wet, kind of adds that thing, so it's not constantly like, if you look at the rain coming in the race, you're not going to immediately think, oh, so I'm going to go backwards in the race. It would be kind of nice to be like, oh, it's going to rain, so I could go forwards, I could go backwards, but I'm not too sure. So that's why I think the kind of half car length to out traction them could be the best way for it, but right now, it is pretty ridiculous. You've seen it so many times. China, Baku, I think it was for me. I'm trying to think of any other circuit. Singapore that you guys saw as well recently, of getting a lot of places in the opening laps on the wet weather. It definitely needs a tweak. But I'm saying, like, for me personally, a tiny tweak, because I do enjoy being able to overtake them. But of course, I'm sure other people, those of you at home, might think very differently and think they need to be very, very hard in the wet, which is fair enough. But yeah, either way, they do need a bit of a tweak, because it is very glaringly obvious that they are not as strong as their dry time counterparts, effectively. Number 4 is going to be the general R&D speed, which I was actually disappointed by it, to see how badly it's gone, essentially, because we did get reassurances that they have tweaked it a little bit from last year's game to this year's game, but it kind of just seems the same thing, really, that you can upgrade the cars a little bit too quickly. I mean, 2018 was actually better than 2019, in my opinion. I think the 2019, it's got even faster, if anything, because now, in practice, you can click Simulate Session, and you can get about 300 resource points if you just click Simulated Session, whereas last year's game, if you just skipped all the sessions, you basically only got like 60 points. But now you can click Simulation Session, and you can still get 300 free R&D points for not doing anything, basically, which is good, because, by the time you get to Season 2, probably, you're already sick and fed up of doing practice programs, so it's kind of nice to get those 300 points, but I feel like just the cost of the upgrades maybe needs to be more, or you just get less in general from the practice programs, or from the race in terms of bonuses, because, we've seen, in other career modes, the Williams cars going up by 3-4 places to 4th place in the span of one season, the worst car on the grid by a mile. The gap from the Williams to the midfield is bigger than the entire midfield in real life, and yet in the game, the Williams car is able to rapidly upgrade into 4th place one season in. Alfa Romeo, like I said, they did get shafted at the start of the season on the game. They shouldn't be the second worst car on the grid, in my opinion, but they are. But I've taken them all the way up to about the 4th or 5th best on paper on R&D, which just really shouldn't be the case, even though it's fun to do that. I will admit it is fun to do that in one season, but in terms of longevity, it is a little bit frustrating to see, and it's worse if you're in a kind of top-tier midfield car. If you're in a Renault, a Racing Point, I guess, or a McLaren, or maybe a McLaren's a little bit too late, maybe a Haas, actually, because the McLaren's quite poor. If you're in a Renault or a Haas, that car is going to rapidly become a top 3, going to become a top 4 contender, basically, along with Merc, Ferrari, and Red Bull, which it starts off fun, but then you can quickly see how it's going to get very boring. And I can't imagine what it would be like if you are in a top team. If you're in a top 3 team, you'd basically have to avoid actually doing R&D points on purpose just to try and slow yourself down, basically, which just shouldn't be the case, but it is. So, yeah, that definitely needs a tweak and look into in terms of either prices of the upgrades or how many points you get. And number 5, I said I'll touch upon it later, and so it's a bit of a smaller one for me in terms of these 5, but the F2 rival speeds definitely need to be looked into. Now, I will say this, I'll play devil advocate. I actually really like the fact that Lucas Weber is rapid. I like the fact that he's an actual, alien driver in terms of pace. He's a good 6/10 faster than George Russell, which, to be fair, you have that in real life sometimes. A la Verstappen and Gasly, you do have that 6/10 gap, so that's not so unrealistic to have that much of a gap between teammates. I've seen that comment on YouTube videos that there shouldn't be that gap between teammates. It is quite realistic. It can happen in real life. It does happen in real life, but the thing is, for me, it's all well and good with Weber being that good, but Devin Butler is not. Butler is just about better than his teammate, but he's not as quick as Weber. And for me personally, in my career mode, Weber's in the Williams and Butler's in the Toro Rosso. Now, right now, at this point in my career mode, the Toro Rosso is slower than the Williams car, so it makes sense. But earlier, the Toro Rosso was better than the Williams, and yet Weber was out-qualifying Butler consistently, and Butler just wasn't, doing the crazy mad dive bombs and performances to get him up the order. If you're going to have OP F2 rivals of Weber and Butler, make them both OP, because then it's a lot more fun. You see them both right up there doing absolute bits, absolute madnesses. Your jaw's going to drop to the floor when they make dive bombs and whatnot. It's a lot of fun, because obviously they're your F2 rivals, basically. That's the storyline of career mode that's being built here, especially in Season 1. So it would be cool to see both of them up there. But right now it's only Weber, and Butler just kind of shows up. I think I've only battled Butler once so far in the season, whereas I battled Weber at least six times, I would say. So definitely tweak that. And then I know a lot of people are just going to say they need to tweak it in a way of they're just not that OP, because it's, some people don't enjoy it. And I get it, because they're fake characters. Weber and Butler, they're fake drivers, so maybe you don't want them to be right up there in your face, beating the likes of, Ricciardo or Perez, or, beating basically official F1 drivers that often. So maybe you want them to be pushed down. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Would you rather Butler be right up there as well with Weber, or do you just want to see them both nerfed down? Because I can definitely see that counter of the argument there. But that's been 5 things that I think need to be changed or tweaked in F1 2019 to make the career mode way more enjoyable. Let me know in the comments below, guys, other ideas you have personally, maybe if you've experienced things that you think need to be tweaked in F1 2019 to make the career mode more enjoyable, and maybe we'll do another one of these videos later down the line. But also at the same time, I don't want to be too negative, so also maybe let me know 5 things or a few things that you guys are really loving about F1 2019 career mode so far with what you play. Let me know that in the comments below. Maybe we'll do a kind of a more positive video, the opposite end video basically to this in a week's time or something like that. But guys, if you did enjoy this video, you did agree with some of those points, then be sure to hit that like button and let me know which ones you agree with or disagree with, basically, and get a discussion going in the comments below. If you're on your own tier, do subscribe for weekly Fallen content. I've been aarava. Have a good day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.